Let's look at the letter first. Long ago, lost in the mists of time before COVID at CitizenCon 2949, we showcased the first in-game prototype of traveling from Stanton to Pyro. We watched that on the channel not too long ago. First time they ever did it on stage. Yes, I know, the gates. And then the space intestine that we all remember very well. So yes, that was the 2019 jump. After much longer than anticipated development process. Yeah, because remember what they said after this? What they dared to put on the screen? Where is it? Where is it, Chris? Chris, show it to me. Jump points and Pyro in 2020. Gross. This is all part of what they are calling the 4.0 preview. Now here's the weird part about it all. For the first time in our history, we will run 2 live releases in parallel, each with their own progress and persistence. This means you'll have the unique opportunity to choose which version you want to dive into, at least for a while. At this stage, we both want and need the high traffic of a live release to thoroughly test server meshing and the newly refactored systems that rely on it as they go through their final paces. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. It's like they don't get they could do what they did with 3.18, but they will not. They won't. They know what's going to happen. They're going to keep it an open PTU. People are not going to test it enough. And then they're going to go live. And if something does happen, they're screwed. If something doesn't happen, great. But the risk is still there. So now we get to see with the 4.0 release that we're seeing right now, if something does happen, that's what they would have been skipping out if they had just done the whole PTU live thing. But now, because it's live, people are going to play it. And from what I've heard, your progress sticks. So people are going to play it because your progress sticks. It is the newest thing. It is interesting, and it's actually running decently right now. But if it does go badly at any point between now and, I don't know, I'm going to guess March, they have 3.24 to fall back on. But this must be expensive for them. Must be expensive, and it must also be not fun logistically. We acknowledge that we did not have time to get all the mission types working before our holiday break. Gonna have to figure out what that is, what missions those are, which is why we have decided to temporarily support 2 parallel live tracks. 3.24 pre will remain available so you can play the missions and engage in game loops that are not working to our new playable standards in 4.0. Meanwhile, the 4.0 preview will also be accessible from your launcher as a second live build. If you're not interested in previewing 4.0, you can simply select 3.24.3 from the dropdown and continue enjoying the current live build. So they're just running 2 live servers. This may feel like our usual PTU process, but there's one key difference. By running both builds on the live environment, we can take steps to ensure that your progress on 4.0 will carry over. Our goal is for anything you do and earn in the 4.0 preview to persist without any further wipes. Unless something major happens, though we do not anticipate that. That's key. I mentioned that in the video today. Like, we might only have one more progress wipe after this. When we go Star Citizen 1.0, let's say Star Citizen 1.0 takes, I don't know, let's give them a good amount of the ample amount of time, 5 years, yeah? If you look at how much we already get largely wiped in the game, our last full wipe was April 2023, 18 months ago. This was back before they did server meshing. This was when they were doing persistent entity streaming. Like, things were still in the working out. You know, they were still trying to figure things out. The way that they are clearly trying to go now, they don't want to wipe anymore. They've got server meshing in. They've done their database work. Hopefully they don't have to do more, but I don't know. Their database, I don't know. We'll see. So there is a chance that they could extend that wipe progression up to 24, possibly even like 30 months. Which would mean we'd have another wipe in 2 years, sure, maybe 2.5 years. But then 2 years after that, or 2.5 years after that is 5 years from now. That would be 1.0, which would essentially mean we go live. You have one wipe and then they go live. So there is a chance that what we are experiencing right now with 4.0 is maybe the last or second to last wipe we ever see before that final go live wipe for Star Citizen 1.0. So this could be a good time to actually jump in with the expectations of some long-term gameplay and progression. It's not all there right now, but I think within the next 4 to 5 patches, we'll start to see a lot more opportunities for progression in this game. So, all this being said, it's important to note that progress made in 3.24.3 will remain tied to that version and will not transfer to 4.0. This allows us to maintain a clean slate for the new systems coming online in 4.0, ensuring a consistent and stable environment as we look to deprecate 3.24.3 in the new year. As you navigate through Stanton and Pyro, you are also navigating seamlessly through a mesh of servers that encompass the entire game. Each planet, landing zone, or major station is now covered by different game servers. Thanks to this technology, server boundaries are effectively invisible. Even at our high levels of fidelity, ensuring smooth, uninterrupted gameplay, this means that server performance, playability, and overall health are now local to each of the nodes in the server mesh. I realized too late that I did not say in my video today what the actual size of the shard is. Shame on me. That's a huge detail to leave out. I just mentioned that we saw them going up to 700, but the shards right now are, I believe, split into 2 servers per star system and 500 players across the whole shard. So what they've done will improve server performance, playability, and overall health, which are now local to each other in each different server node. Even dreaded server crashes, those 30Ks we know, are now localized to each individual server region, with players in other regions or areas of space or planets unaffected by server crashes. It also means improved performance, as each server is simulating fewer entities, resulting in more responsiveness and allowing the game we are striving to finally shine through its content. People are confirming in chat that it is indeed running better. 5 servers per system, 500 player soft cap. Okay, so we got 10 servers running per shard right now, and wow, that's a lot of servers, huh? 4.0 is the smoothest you've ever seen the game. Getting into a shard is so smooth. This is going so well. I hope it sticks. But yeah, as we can see, they're laying out the benefits of server meshing, and we are seeing them in the live server. At least right now, it's working. 4.0 is not just 324 with server meshing, though. It also includes a lot of new content. With the addition of Pyro, we have further pushed our reputation system to include 2 competing mission chains that allow you to align with either headhunters or citizens for prosperity. So I haven't experienced or even heard about this yet. I've heard about the mission chains that take place on the space stations, but apparently there's a mission chain in the ground outposts where you can align with either of the gangs. This tells us 2 things. One, they are definitely starting to try and work on fitting those faction-based missions into the game more narratively focused. That's what they talked about with Star Citizen 1.0. This is probably another example of them early testing that on. They'll be doing this with all the factions. 2, this kind of tells me these are the only 2 factions right now that have reputation hostility. Because then they say this means areas that were previously neutral will become hostile or friendly depending on your choice. And they're only saying this about the headhunters or citizens of prosperity, which they also highlighted in their Inside Star Citizen, were unique to the ground locations in Pyro. So this might also be a test case for their reputation hostility before they expand it to other gangs. But I do think we will still see it with the other gangs they're about to go over here. We'll confirm this over the next couple of weeks. Definitely that mission chain. That sounds like fun, but I think that might be the case. This decision will become even more important next year as we start to put a greater focus on storytelling inside the verse, as they mentioned again with their Star Citizen 1.0 focus. We've also introduced contested zones within the major space stations in Pyro, each heavily manned by a gang faction, Fire Rats, Horizon, or Xenothreat. These large sprawling locations offer high-quality rewards in the depths of their vaults, but you will need to contend with the current occupants and either help or battle your fellow players. They are also home to the mysterious Pyro amalgamated component boards, which some say can lead to even greater rewards. This is large loot drops. These essentially act as dungeons that are enter and exit as you please. They're not instanced, but they are completely weapons free. You can work together or work against other people. And generally you find good loot, some good activity and combat in these locations, and they just act as hotspots for you to go and get into more of this high octane stuff. Not a huge thing, but one of the more exciting parts of the update in terms of like gameplay action. It's an important milestone as we start to introduce different ways for players to progress in the game, with reputation and physical rewards being something we aim to push even further towards in future updates. Now, here is the important part of this letter. As we jump into the new year, our primary focus across Star Citizen, across our teams, is clear: improving playability. Our drive for playability surrounds 3 critical areas: performance, stability, and content. We understand that the live environment must be far more reliable and consistent, and we are determined to deliver on this. The sentiment many of you have shared, and one we wholeheartedly agree with, is that if the current game as it stands today ran smoothly with fewer obstacles and bugs, it would provide an unparalleled experience. We've said it quite a few times at this point, in many different ways, from many different angles and corners of the community. I have no doubt that they've known this for quite some time, and they've probably wanted to get past server meshing before they could really make this a big statement. But it's been pretty clear over the last, I'd say, 2 years now, that they've made a good shift towards focusing on the new player experience and game stability. It hasn't borne many fruit yet. I think it's started to. We've noticed with the rendering engine and other things like that kind of improving some frame rates over the last year, but this sounds like a pretty big call to action for them as well. Over the years, we have experimented with different approaches to improve quality of life and tackling tech debt. However, the ongoing challenge has been balancing these efforts alongside the introduction of new features and technology. Too often, testing new features within the same pipeline as content has led to unintended ripple effects, creating instability, hindering performance, and impacting overall gameplay. In some cases, new features that are not fully matured have delayed the release of content or caused blockers that impact our progress. This has prompted us to reevaluate our approach to features and content rollout, focusing on steps we could take to bring the game to a better state while maintaining steady delivery. This is funny. This is actually pretty funny. This is basically the same stance they were taking when they launched 3.0. They said, okay, so for all this time, we have been launching content based on when that content is ready for you guys. And that has led to some pretty bad launches because, like you've seen with 3.0, you had to wait a whole year for this update because it depended on tech rather than content. So we're going to switch to a 4 updates a year format so that instead of being dependent on features, it's dependent on time. And you guys will always get the best updates, and we'll make sure that the features wait for those updates to be ready. That was only kind of true this whole time, right? I mean, obviously persistent entity streaming and server meshing were two things that really had to hold back the updates they were in, and we saw that happen for both 3.18 and 4.0. But there were definitely other times when the game would see like a slowdown or a holdback because of certain features. I don't know. It's also this also is implicated in a video I'm working on right now that's about just what happened in 2024, which was basically them saying we are moving on from our previous style of development and focusing more on an efficient method that we hope will get results faster. That I just summarized the whole video into like one sentence, but that video will be out on Christmas Day, and there's more context you'll get there. Yeah, let's see what else this has to say. To achieve our goals, we are making a fundamental change, decoupling feature development from content creation and general fixes. This means new features will no longer hold up content delivery or risk destabilizing the live environment. This approach will leverage the tech preview channel, which was reserved for major new pieces of technology like the replication layer and server meshing, but will now extend to gameplay feature testing too. When a new feature is deemed complex or risky enough to require focused testing, we'll introduce a separate experimental PTU or ePTU channel dedicated to that feature. Testing in this isolated channel will allow us to refine and stabilize the feature without impacting content and broader development work. Only once the feature is fully greenlit will it integrate into our standard Evo or PTU or live pipeline. I don't think that's enough. It's not just that you need to separate it from the main branch of the game in order to make sure it's not having problems with that. We are still getting features at a tier 0 or tier 1 state. That's the problem. And when they come in that state, and maybe that's what they're saying here, that they're going to continue to develop them to the point where they get past that state. That's what Rich Tyrer wanted to do for Squadron 42. I think that's kind of what he talked about wanting to do earlier on when he was on Star Citizen Live, when they mentioned making the teams more self-sufficient and able to support each other easily. And kind of bringing the content teams and the feature teams closer together so they can develop content as they're developing the feature. I think that's probably what this is supposed to be as well. They're talking about putting something in the ePTU, if I'm reading this right, and keep it in the ePTU for good, probably building the content while they're revising the feature, and then they start testing it in Evocati and PTU. If they're trying to fix what they're trying to fix, and I'm not saying that this is the right thing that they're doing. I'm saying that if they wanted to try and fix the problem they're talking about here, in my opinion, it definitely also needs more testing within content, not just testing separate from PTU. I've got to think about this more. I think we need to hear a little bit more about what this means for this ePTU environment. If they are just running the ePTU like they run the PTU, where people are just playing the game and that feature is included, I'm not sure that's going to do too much. If it is truly focused testing and they have people in the PTU like running those specific missions and then they're hammering out the bugs that people are seeing on those missions with that specific gameplay, that's different. We just had ePTU, right? Over the last few weeks. And it was definitely more focused because it was ePTU, but it was still generalized. Like you had 6 planets and 5 moons and a bunch of missions and things to look at in that segment. It wasn't like they were putting you in the PU and saying, okay, everybody run this mission, everybody do this thing. Kind of like what they do with Evocati. They say this means we'll have more stability and predictability in our ongoing game releases, as the main development stream will not be disrupted by untested features still being worked on. Instead, the team can focus on improving stability, performance, and quality of life. Alongside this playability initiative, we are also tying together our content releases so that they feel more connected to the world. That's what I was talking about with the earlier. Having updates that have some narrative sense to them makes a game feel more like a game. That's what players are expecting. And not doing that makes these updates feel very alpha. Doing that is a great way to start to make the updates feel more significant to players without actually needing to be doing the full-on release type of game yet, you know? They can get ahead. They can start to make it feel a little bit more like a fully shipped game when it isn't really. Which is what they've been doing with like marketing and stuff, but now they can do it with updates a bit more, which is nice. Alongside this playability initiative, we are also tying together our content I already read that. This means new content drops will be more focused and drive an overall narrative forward, similar to our Overdrive and Save Stanton events. That's an interesting anecdote. I wonder how those apply. I wonder if that means they're slowly changing the idea of global events, or these two things specifically will be moving away from what global events kind of are. This content will then unlock new and powerful rewards, including ships, armors, and weapons that you can play to earn. Very nice. We are taking this approach to deliver more things to do more often than we have in the past, where we have frequently been held hostage by tech or feature work that has taken longer than anticipated. Our objective is to make Star Citizen more stable, more performant, and more fun this coming year. My whole career, I have created the games I wanted to play as a gamer because I could see a game in my mind's eye that didn't exist. I felt if it did, it would be amazing. And I could see the steps needed to make it a reality. I have been fortunate that the games that I want to play, a lot of other people also want to play. But I have rarely met a publishing executive that has the ability to see the possibilities in this kind of vision. They can only see a known quantity, a sequel, a bet on an existing IP. This is why I chose crowdfunding for Star Citizen rather than pursuing a development deal with a big publisher. And it is why I feel incredibly lucky and privileged to be able to develop Star Citizen and Squadron 42 with all your continued support, year after year, as it allows me and every developer at CIG to focus on just making the game that we and you all want to play. Star Citizen and Squadron 42 are 2 games that would never have been greenlit by any of the big publishers. It's true. They are both too ambitious and in a genre that up until recently was viewed as niche. Up until recently, is the space genre not niche anymore? Was it niche before? Did something happen? They require patience and investment that I doubt any publisher would have the stomach for. Yet here we are, thanks to all of you. So mainly he's just giving a thanks here, giving some news about the future, with a clear destination for both Squadrons release, the Star Citizen 1.0 roadmap, a focused team, and more importantly, the enthusiasm and support from the best community in gaming. We will deliver. The impact the community has felt far beyond the game as well. In 2024 alone, an incredible 203 Bar Citizen meetups, bringing players together to celebrate their passion for our shared universe. Community organized events like Beacon and Shenzhen Bar Citizen each drew over 2,000 attendees. Citizen Con drew over 5,000 people. Over 1 million players played the game this year uniquely, over 32 million hours between them all. The game itself population grew by almost 500,000 people. And those are the stats you really get. Not an insanely detailed statistics spread, but it's, you know, it's just a quick update on what's really going on. This is a short letter from the chairman. This is, again, another improvement over what he did previously. Last time he did a letter from the chairman, it was also better, but still had some things in there that you're like, meh, Chris, I don't know. He's finally just completely skipped all sense of dates or setting expectations for the future now, and literally is just saying things like, we will deliver. That's the report on 4.0's release and really the detailed look and what they're saying.